Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 478 of the Psychology Podcast. This is a very special episode. Well, since it's my last one in this form. I have been podcasting for 11 years now, practically every single week. And truth is, while I love everything I've learned along the way, I want to take this time to recenter, to continue bringing additive value to my audience, and to recharge myself. When I started this podcast November 16th, 2014, there weren't many psychology podcasts in existence, if any. I was driven by my intrinsic passion for the field of psychology and wanted to put a microphone on the amazing psychological scientists I knew and shine a spotlight on their important work and how it applies to the lives of everyone. Far too often, good scientific research hides in the shadows in peer-reviewed publications, and I wanted to get the word out there about all the incredible work going on. Now it's 2025, and everyone and their mother has a podcast, and there are so many wonderful psychology-related podcasts in existence now, which is great. So I've decided to take a step back. In this episode, I am interviewed by the acclaimed science writer and author Annie Murphy-Paul about the major lessons I've learned over the years doing this podcast. I think the 7 major themes we discuss really do a great job capturing the essence of this podcast, which has always been more about being than doing, creativity over efficiency, self-actualization over achievement, deep fulfillment over fleeting feelings of happiness, and self-transcendence over self-enhancement. Thanks from the bottom of my heart to all of you for making this podcast possible and for your support over the years. If you feel called, please write a review on iTunes or wherever to let me know what this show has meant to you. I wish you all the very best in your own sacred journey of self-actualization and self-transcendence, and look forward to sharing with you all the next steps in my own journey when it's time. As Michaela Cole so eloquently put it, do not be afraid to disappear from it, from us, for a while, and see what comes to you in the silence. So without further ado, I bring you Annie Murphy-Paul and the 7 biggest insights I've gleaned from doing this podcast, the Psychology Podcast.
Scott, the man of the hour, how are you doing?
Annie Murphy-Paul. Woo! This is episode 477 of the Psychology Podcast. You were on episode 1 of the Psychology Podcast in November 16 of 2014.
Wow. So how much has changed since then, right?
Yeah. A lot has changed and a lot has not changed. I re-listened to our episode and I was like, well, it still holds. It's still, it's great. Yeah. You did great. The science of growing smarter and,
is that what we
maintaining, high expectations. So it was really good.
That's interesting. Yeah. Huh. Well, you've certainly grown smarter probably in the 11 years since then, right? Certainly more knowledgeable.
Maybe my fluid intelligence has decreased, my processing speed, but my crystallized intelligence has increased for sure, my wisdom.
Yeah, well, before we get into the 7 insights that you've sort of pulled together from your 11 years of hosting the Psychology Podcast, I just want to ask you, how are you feeling about this project, this long running project coming to an end?
I feel really proud of the rich content that I was able to record that will last forever. As long as we have digital capabilities and humanity. This was a really meaningful personal project of mine that started by me just wanting to put the microphone on my colleagues at Penn. And then, some of my first guests was you. We had Angela Duckworth as one of my first guests. And, I just sort of went to my friends at Penn and I was like, hey, I would love to feature your research. I would really love to get the word out there about what you're doing. It's so awesome. It really came from this place of a real intrinsic passion for the field of psychology. And I didn't really see anything like that at the time in the podcast area.
Yeah, you were early. You were early in the podcasting game. Now everyone has a podcast, and you're like, it's too common. It's too popular. I'm getting out.
It's true.
I'd like to know what you're doing next because you're obviously on the cutting edge.
Thanks. Well, whatever I do next is will be something next level, and it'll be something even better than the psychology podcast.
Even better. Okay, well, let's start our look back at what you feel like you've learned by talking to all these incredible researchers across 11 years. And one of the points that you pulled out is certainly not something that you learned on the psychology podcast, because I know you were working in this area well before that. One of the 7 insights that you pulled out of your 11 years of doing this podcast, Scott, is that human potential is far broader than standard metrics of IQ or achievement. And,
Yes.
I know that's a theme of your work and your thinking for many years. How did that play out in the conversations you had on the podcast?
I think that's definitely a major theme. Human potential is something that I view as not tied up with your intelligence necessarily is a sole factor. And I certainly don't think that the extent to which we're achieving human potential is the extent to which we're achieving based on standard metrics of success. Achievement being you have to get accolades or likes on Instagram, in order to really feel like you're achieving your human potential. I think a lot of people feel these days like they're not maximizing their potential if they're not getting enough attention as the next person on social media. And my whole career has really been trying to expand our notions of what intelligence means as well, what it means to be smart, and include a lot of things in the neurodiversity spectrum.
Can you remember a particular conversation with a researcher that brought that point out for you?
Oh boy, I'm going through my head, but we're almost 500 episodes.
Yeah.
You were the first one in talking about how to be smarter, and your ideas of smarter weren't necessarily tied to IQ. But I'm also just thinking about my own research, and I did the Human Potential Lab was a little series within the psychology podcast I did, and I did a little lecture on IQ and intelligence and how we need to kind of go beyond the standard metrics. And so it's been a common theme, and that I've tried to interject into almost all my interviews. Yes.
Well, this next point is one that's dear to my heart because, I wrote a book about personality testing, the cult of personality. That was a cultural history and scientific critique of personality testing. And your point here is that personality traits are not fixed. Transformation is possible and meaningful.
Yes.
And you've done work, some of your own work is in the area of personality. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like the newer way of we're kind of thinking about personality traits and variation, like as density distributions. So all of us really go throughout the day being all sorts of different levels of a personality trait. So to say you're an introvert doesn't mean that you're an introvert 24/7.
Right.
You have your extroverted moments. Personality really is just your habitual patterns of states. Traits are just habitual patterns of states, but you can change your personality by changing your habitual pattern of states. And that's something I want to make very clear to people. And there's some really exciting personality intervention research. I'm doing it right now with my students at Barnard College, personality lecture, where I have them choose a particular big 5 personality trait they want to change. And I have them use some of these scientifically validated interventions to do a whole bunch of actions to try to change them. Interestingly enough, the trait that's easiest to change is neuroticism. But
really?
Yes.
I'm surprised. I might have thought it would be introversion, that you could sort of just change your way of interacting with people and push yourself to get out there a little bit more and end up being more extroverted. But
maybe a different way of phrasing it in terms of the easiest to change is that you see the largest effects over time.
Interesting.
There are a lot of things people can do to reduce their anxiety in life and to be more emotionally stable and to have emotional regulation techniques.
So things like
meditation, cognitive reframing, cognitive reappraisal, cognitive distancing, imagining to yourself in a moment, well, 50 years, will this matter? How upset I'm getting right now.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things there. But the hardest trait, I think this is interesting, the hardest trait that we've found to really change in the long run and that don't really have such large effects with these interventions is the trait openness to experience, which I think is the trait that's most related to creativity and human flourishing.
Why? Do you have any ideas, Scott, about why that might be so difficult to change?
Well, I don't think part of that is that psychologists really haven't really done a great job coming up with the right activities and actions to really move the needle on that. We are much clearer on what you need to do if you want to be more extroverted or be more emotionally stable, more conscientiousness, more conscientious, I should say. Yes, and then if you want to be more agreeable or more so a lot of my students a lot of people want to be less agreeable. That's another thing that a lot of people might want because they're too much of a people pleaser.
I see.
So it depends on whatever direction you want to go there on that trait. But openness to experience is such a broad trait that it's one that I've studied a long time in my career and includes not only intellectual curiosity but deep appreciation of the arts and music and being able to get deeply absorbed in what you're doing, and it's associated with creativity. It's the number one best predictor of creativity. So it'd be important if we could figure out ways of teaching it. But I don't think that anyone's really nailed it yet. Yeah,
interesting. Well, let me ask you, Scott, do you think your pattern of personality traits has changed at all across 11 years of?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, how?
I've definitely become less agreeable.
Really?
Oh yeah, totally.
Why is that? Or how is that? Why and how?
I listened to some of my earlier re-listening my episode with you. I was like a little lapdog. Oh, Andy, you're amazing. It's like I don't know. It's just like I don't know. I don't feel the need to like appease people so much anymore. I really am very connected to who I am, and I feel like I know myself a lot better than I did 11 years ago, and I don't really need other people to tell me who I am. Hi all, I want to take a moment to make a few important announcements that I'm really excited about. As you all know, I'm committed to helping people self-actualize. In the service of that, I just had a new book come out called Rise Above. Overcome a victim mindset, empower yourself, and realize your full potential. In this book, I offer a science-backed toolkit to help you overcome your limiting beliefs and take control of your life. Are you tired of feeling helpless? This book will offer you hope not by identifying with the worst things that have happened to you, but by empowering you to tap into the best that is within you. Rise Above is available wherever you get your books. Are you a personal coach looking to take your coaching to the next level? I'm also excited to tell you that our Foundations of Self-Actualization Coaching 3-day immersive experience for coaches is back by popular demand. Foundations of Self-Actualization Coaching is a course offered to enhance your coaching practice by offering you evidence-based tools and insights to equip you to more effectively help your clients unlock their unique creative potential. You can learn more about the course and register by going to centerforhumanpotential.com/SAC. That's centerforhumanpotential.com/SAC. Okay, now back to the show.
So in your case, becoming a little less agreeable has been a good thing, it sounds like.
It's been a very good thing. It's been a very good thing.
Yeah.
But not so much that, one becomes an asshole, and it's important not to reduce it too much. Some people, they have this like, no, we're Mr. Nice Guy attitude, and then they kind of go the extreme, and that's, everyone can tell that they've overcompensated.
Right.
There's just a good, Carl Rogers put it so well in one of his quotes. He said, it's not about being more than you are. It's not about being less than you are, being self-effacing. It's not about being more than you are and puffing yourself up. It's about really getting in touch with who you truly are and really being comfortable with it. So, I think I've become more comfortable in my own skin, probably.
Yes, we love Carl Rogers, don't we?
We do.
I was grasping for one of his famous phrases at one time talking to you, and you knew it by heart, the one about
the curious paradox.
Yeah. Can you say
the curious paradox is that once we accept who we are, then we can change.
Right. Yes, I love that. I find that to be very true. Well, what you said about how personality traits are really a pattern of states that we often occupy leads us into another point that you've drawn out of your 11 years of hosting the Psychology Podcast, which is long-lasting, meaningful change often depends on habits, systems, and repeated behaviors.
Yes.
What's your thinking about that?
And we have had some really world-class people on the show who've talked about that over the years, like Art Markman talked about that very early on and how to change your habits. Yeah, I've had James Clear on my podcast, who's definitely blown up. A lot of people after appearing on my podcast have blown up.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
I had Tim Ferriss on in the early days, and he was really he really talked about how he creates very systematic habits. And so there's something I've learned from a lot of my guests who are maybe a different kind of personality than me, but there's something I can still learn from them. I fall more in kind of the dreamy, openness to experience, camp, daydreamer. But there's something to be said and a lot to be learned from the kind of personality of the very rigid consistency. They're obsessed with consistency. They're obsessed with results and quantifying themselves. And I think that if you do want to make long-lasting changes, it's good to have a plan. I think that is very good. I've discovered that to be very beneficial in my own personal life. It's good to know when you're making progress and to have these kind of SMART goals. As they're called.
Yeah. Can you think of a habit that you worked to change, over the past 11 years?
Oh, what a great question. Well, exercise has been something I've gone into, especially living in LA. That's the only way to date in LA is to look good. Whereas in New York, they care about my brain. There's a very, very clear difference between dating in New York and LA. But anyway, you didn't come on the Psychology Podcast to talk about my dating life. But
I'm wondering what worked for you in terms of making exercise a regular habit.
It's fun. It feels good to
intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you're conquering something, even if you don't conquer anything else that day. If you get up, I usually work out in the morning, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't need to do anything else today. Like I did something today. I mean, of course, there's other things I need to do, but I'm saying, at least I conquered one small thing today. It feels good to be healthy, and to feel vital and alive. In terms of habits and personality. It's a really interesting question. I like 11 years is kind of flashing before my eyes. I think I've just really chilled out a lot. I mean, it might have been all the marijuana I did in Santa Monica on the beach. But
so you're less anxious, you would say, or less.
I think I've lowered my neuroticism levels maybe 50%.
Wow.
Since 2014. Since we started. Absolutely. Wow. I mean, when I lived in Philadelphia at the time at Penn, and I would just walk around in a state of constant anxiety and panic attacks, and the idea of a panic attack is so foreign to me now, and it feels so far away. It doesn't feel like let me put it this way: it feels like I really can nip things in the bud more emotionally. Things don't spiral downward automatically anymore, like they used to. And I think that was a big change.
Yeah. I feel that I've seen that change in knowing you, Scott, that
Is that right?
Way more chill now. Yeah. Less worried about things, more kind of going with the flow.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, I might even say that I'm pretty emotionally stable now. I wouldn't even say I'm neurotic anymore, which is fascinating. Yeah. Considering that was a big part of my identity for so many years.
Yeah. Was there something there that was especially helpful? Do you meditate?
Well, I do think living in California for 5 years and getting into meditation and living in such a chill environment helped. Coming back to New York is an interesting experience for me. But
you really perceive a lot of differences between those two places, huh?
They're like night and day.
Scott, I want to turn to another point that you've drawn from your 11 years of hosting the Psychology podcast that is, I know, very near and dear to your heart, which is creativity. And this idea that creativity is a really vital dimension of human flourishing. And it's been such a consistent thread in your work, and your thinking. And I wonder why, if you could talk a little bit about why you feel creativity is so important and so valuable.
I think creativity is everything, to be able to bring into existence things that have not existed before is we do that automatically just by existing. And I think to be alive is a creative experience. And Freud said, love and work and love are the cornerstones of humanness. I think, I don't think work is a cornerstone of humanness. I think creativity is. I think it's, if I may modify Freud, I think it's love and creativity. Love and creativity are the things to live a good life. Feeling love for an activity you're doing or for a human, but really having that sense of aliveness usually is correlated with a sense of you're creating things of value in the world.
What I like about your approach to creativity is that you don't seem to feel that it's restricted to, artists or writers or musicians, but that all of us humans are creative in a sense.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes. I don't think creativity is limited to a particular field of study. There might be some fields where we don't want intense creativity, like pilots, or tax accountants. But nevertheless, if we do view creativity as divergent thinking and the ability to come up with lots of solutions to a problem, maybe we do want that everywhere. We want the potential, the ability for divergent thinking, not just convergent thinking, which is the ability to come up with a one right answer. And also with divergent thinking, a big part of divergent thinking is being able to come up with the problem in the first place. Knowing being able to see that there's a problem. There are a lot of problems that people don't even see as problems.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I do think creative people are very good at picking up on that.
Identifying problems.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was good at that.
Yeah. Did you feel that putting together your podcast was a creative endeavor?
Oh, absolutely. We set first. I mean, it was such a new thing in the podcast space,
right?
I mean, there was a period of years where it felt very fresh and it felt very something special, Now, like you said, everyone and their mother has a podcast, and psychology content is everyone's a psychologist. I mean, I see so many people who are just so much more famous than I am on Instagram who are not legit psychologists, just talking about everything they know. We interestingly enough, it's interesting. When I got into this and I created this, I wanted it to really show why expertise matters and really shine a spotlight on a lot of nerds who are having their head down in the laboratory and are doing careful work. It feels like these days we're living in the age of everyone's an expert, if that makes sense. Yeah, everyone, just all you have to have is confidence and that what you're saying is true, and that's enough to for others to really take you seriously. And it's no shade, but it's an observation.
Well, I think that's one of the great things about your podcast is that for those listeners who want evidence-based, experimentally generated evidence, of these ideas, behind what these ideas that we're talking about. Your podcast has always been a place to go for that.
Well, thank you. That certainly was the intention.
Yeah. I wonder, just back to this question of your podcast as a creative enterprise, did you feel like you at first were figuring out how to talk to your guests, and then eventually you settled into like a kind of a pattern or a practice that at first you were doing your best to work out?
Yes. I learned on the fly, it's not like I went to podcasting school. And there weren't that many other examples out there. I just committed myself to being myself, and my quirky, self and authentic, really mattered to me. And I started, if I may be so bold to say, I felt like I had a knack for it. I felt like it suited me. To get out of the laboratory and have conversations and show my enthusiasm for science and psychology. I love being a public science communicator, and I many years concomitant with my podcast, I wrote a popular blog at Scientific American, Psychology Today at first, and then Scientific American. So it all kind of fed into each other. It was a really nice period of my life.
Yeah. I think it's always been apparent that you were enjoying yourself. You were very interested and engaged and eager to talk to these people. And I think that really showed,
Thank you.
Yeah. It's always one reason that I've enjoyed your podcast.
It means a lot. It means a lot.
So another point that you make about, that you've pulled out of what you've learned across hosting the psychology podcast is that emotional intelligence, vulnerability, and having self-compassion for your dark side is important. And I would love to hear you talk about the dark side. I know you've done work on, not so much the dark triad, but the light triad. Am I saying it right? Is it
triad?
Triad. So I'm sort of curious what you might have to say about the dark side. Why having self-compassion for our dark side is important.
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of research on both the light triad and the dark triad. In order to validate our light triad, we had to do a lot of research on the dark triad.
Yeah,
and I think that the point there is that you often see goodness in its contrast to the opposite. I don't know if the concept of evil makes a lot of sense or if we can really define it, but in my attempts to see what the light side of personality is. We really took a deep dive into traits such as narcissism, Machiavellianism, manipulating others, psychopathy. When we talk about the dark side, we also think about things like just depression or thinking about anxiety. The field of positive psychology calls them negative emotions, and they contrast that with positive emotions such as contentment and joy and happiness. But I don't really like the artificial labeling of certain emotions as negative and others as positive. I think that we have emotions that are uncomfortable. We have emotions that are comfortable, or some emotions that are ecstatic, I like talking about the experience more and really understand how all these emotions really can be positive in certain contexts. My colleague Todd Kashtin and Robert Biswas-Diener wrote a great book together on the upside of your dark side, and Todd was on the early days on my podcast talking about the dancing with your dark side, I think is what we titled the episode.
Oh, nice.
I really agree with that perspective that being able to, that there are many things we can do to acknowledge, accept, and have self-compassion for the sides of ourselves that we may have shame over, or or that make us feel uncomfortable. There's this idea of the handshake practice with your beautiful monsters, as Sharon Salzberg talked about on my podcast, and she talked about in her work it's a very Buddhist concept. And,
so the idea is you shake hands.
Rinpoche, is in charge of that. It kind of
you shake hands in a cordial way with your monsters, your inner demons.
Yeah, you say, I see you. And a lot of these, Richard Schwartz also, Dick Schwartz, when he was on my podcast, we talked about his approach. And there's this idea of, you welcome them in, you ask them, what do they want? What kind of role are they trying to play in your inner life, or in your outer life as well? What role are they trying to play in your either? And Mark Brackett, who's been on a couple times, I believe, talking about dealing with your feelings and emotional intelligence. I would include as a component of all of this.
Yeah. Well, if I may ask, Scott, is what aspect of your dark side have you developed compassion for?
Oh, lots of aspects. I look at a lot of my prior suffering with a real compassionate lens, and I don't. There are things that'd be so easy for me to watch earlier interviews and just cringe, and it'd be easy to do that. It'd be easy to do that because there's lots of things I've done that are cringeworthy, and I don't think that's the relationship I want to have with my prior self. So I think that, being able to kind of watch versions of me that were in development, but were also trying my best, with the limited knowledge I had at the time about limited wisdom. We're always limited in our wisdom.
Right.
Is, just with a heavy heart and just with a lot of love and, really, I love that quirky guy, and I'm also glad that I've learned a lot of lessons, and I've also been able to, step into new versions of myself.
Yeah. And one of the words in that phrase, that point that I made was, we talked about emotional intelligence, we talked about self-compassion for the dark side, and the third point there was vulnerability. And something that's always struck me about you, Scott, is that you're very in tune with your vulnerability. You're very open about it. You share it, which I think is such a gift, in a culture in which vulnerability is often covered over with a, image of everything's great. Everything's, I'm on top of everything, and I've always felt like you've been brave enough to share that you're, a vulnerable human being.
I really appreciate that, Annie. That means a lot to me. I'm not one of these, I'm not going to name names, but one of these, there's these polished, self-help gurus that just never seem to have everything is so perfect. Every hair is always in place perfectly. Everything they say is perfect. Everything they say, their audience, they get 1 million people being like, "You're a genius that you said something, so banal." But it's do you know what I mean?
I do.
And that's just not me. And I just want to be me,
Yeah. So a sixth point that you pulled out of your 11 years hosting the podcast, Scott, is that relationships, connection, and social context matter and continually shape our minds. So we've been talking a lot about sort of individual traits and states here, but relationships, they're so important. Could you talk a little bit about how that theme has played out across your years hosting the podcast?
Yes. The idea of relationships playing a huge role in our human flourishing and our contentment in life is backed by so much research. A lot of people from Sonia Lubomirsky, who's been on the podcast, to again Sharon Salzberg, talking about love and connection and having an open heart. There's just so much exciting research on that. My head's going through. There's so many people who have, we had Ben Ryan, who was on recently talking about the neuroscience of social connection. Cassie Killam, who's really talked about the importance of social connections, and so Cassie, is rocking that, and it's been a really big theme repeating over and over again on this podcast, that it's
mm-hmm.
inescapable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just feeling a sense of belonging, but it's also, I like to distinguish between a belonging and a sense of belonging and a sense of intimacy or relatedness, where you and the other person, there's a real mutuality there, a real mutual growth on both ends. With belonging, you may feel like you belong to something, a group, an organization, a political, thing, and you go to a meeting and you dissent, or say, I don't think I agree with the party line here, and they say you're out. That's to me not a relationship. That's not a relationship. So, I think a lot of people are obsessed with belonging and the need to belong, but like DEI, belong. I think that not just belonging, but connection matters a lot too.
Yeah. Would you say that all the research on the importance of relationships has affected you in terms of how you prioritize relationships or how you spend your time?
Oh, yes. I mean, for sure. I mean, I treasure my friends. I mean, of course. And there's just nothing better than just getting together with your friends and your particular type of friend, a friend who accepts all of you, and I do have friends like that,
Yeah.
Shout out Jordan Feingold and Dan Lerner.
Unconditional
Krista Stryker. Yeah, there are people in my life, where they just let me be me. Well, not only that, but they admire it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, this last point that you've pulled out is just so Scott. It's such the essence of SBK, and so. I'll read it here. The ultimate aim of psychological insight is not just to fix problems, but to orient life toward growth, meaning, and connection. And this really makes me think of your book, Ascend, right? Was that the title?
Transcend.
Sorry, that was building on Maslow's work. Could you talk a little bit about that? That was a strand of your work that I especially resonates for me.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, questions of what is a good life have permeated my consciousness for a long time. I really like the humanistic psychology way of thinking about it. They really focus on being over doing, and focus on what really matters. What really matters, what really makes us feel whole and alive, experientially alive is what the humanistic psychology are really interested in understanding and knowing. And in my book Transcend, I reimagined Maslow's hierarchy of needs from a static pyramid that he never drew to a sailboat that's dynamic. The sailboat metaphor needs the Kaufman sailboat metaphor, where you're moving in the ocean and or the sea of life, and waves could come crashing down on you at any time. There could be winds. You don't know what's going to happen once you open that sail and you start moving towards your desired port. But if you don't have a clear vision of what port you want to sail to, you're not going to be moving in that direction at all. And so it's very important to have a very clear vision of where you want to go, have a purpose, and move with purpose. Live your purpose.
Yes.
Day in and day out. Stay true to your values. And also acknowledge that we have basic needs, that sometimes we may have our days where we need to close that sail and focus on just plugging the holes in the boat. And that's okay. And that's okay.
You seem like someone who's very much living his purpose, Scott. I mean, would you?
Oh, thanks, Annie.
If you had to put your purpose in a sentence, what would you say?
Well, I really want to empower all people to realize their higher potential. I mean, it's really as simple as that. There's nothing more exciting to me than when I have a coaching client. I created a form of coaching in recent years called self-actualization coaching, where we really help people get in touch with the most alive, unique, creative center of their being, is the way I put it. It's also that's how Karen Horney put it. One of my favorite psychoanalysts, neo-psychoanalysts who really challenged Freud. But so I think really helping people get in touch with that unique center of their being. And there's nothing more exciting to me than when I see someone have this aha moment of wonder and awe within themselves at what they already have within them, or they see a higher possibility for themselves that maybe they didn't see in themselves, or maybe other people didn't see it in them, but they see it in themselves. And I think that to enable all people to have that is, that's my purpose. That
has been from your very first, was Ungifted your first book?
That was my first book for a general audience.
Yeah. I mean, that was really about, as you said, being able to recognize strengths and talents in oneself, even when other people haven't. Really powerful.
That's true.
So
I feel seen.
You feel seen. So looking back across 11 years of the podcast, Scott, I know you were saying like there's been so many guests. Are there a few moments that stick out to you? Something that a guest said that really is still ringing in your ears, or that you find yourself repeating or remembering? Can you think of any moments that really stand out?
Look, after so many episodes, what starts to remain are these threads that we discussed today. I'll be honest. The individual people is, as much as we want to think all of us are going to, it's our name that, our monument's going to last. Is that really what's most important? It's the fact that I've had over the years, so many, I would say every single one of my guests over four, I don't want to single out anyone here in the ending of this episode. I want to make the point that they have all significantly contributed to the canon of truth.
Yes.
And these patterns that we talked about today, I think you really nailed it. These seven, really form the clusters if you did a factor analysis of all the episodes, which is a nerdy statistical technique. These are the major themes this podcast has covered and that stand out to me as the message that I think taken together from everyone, the collective knowledge of 470. Well, I guess this is episode 478 of the Psychology Podcast.
Wow. That's a lot. Well, I want to ask you, Scott, about what's next for you, but not necessarily in terms of specific projects. I want to know, what are you excited about? What do you want to find out still? I know there's so much left to be discovered. What are you excited about and thinking about in terms of the future?
Well, one thing is taking my self-actualization coaching program in new directions. We're continuing to train coaches, and we have a 6-month certification program, but I want to branch out into other areas like education, having teachers view themselves as self-actualization coaches and managers. So in the business world, I'm getting increasingly interested in the future of leadership, and particularly human-centered leadership. And I have a edited book I'm doing with Chris Shipley coming out next year on the future of leadership. Really in the age of AI and in the age of such uncertainty. What does it look like where we keep our humanity, And I also have been really getting into mentalism and magic. And so I'm still trying to figure out ways of incorporating my mentalism burgeoning skills into my keynote speeches and performances and things to really inspire people to realize the depths of their human potential.
Yeah. I'm not sure I know what mentalism is exactly. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
It's mind reading.
Mind reading? Oh, okay.
No, well, the field of mentalism is a sub-branch of magic that includes your ability to make predictions about what someone's going to think, your ability to read their minds of what they're currently thinking, and the ability to influence what they're going to think, influence. So it's those three areas. Now, is the mind reading literally you're going in their brain and you're reading their thoughts? No, but there's deep, complex methods and various things that you combine to give the appearance of real mind reading and real magic. And at the end of the day, the most exciting thing is being able to create a sense of awe and wonder in people and let them see that things that seem impossible are actually possible. And that's the thing that excites me the most about the field of mentalism.
Oh, that's so cool. Will the podcast interviews continue to be available after the show left the air?
The Psychology Podcast will still be available, the whole back catalog, and what happens to the feed and what happens next to the podcast will be revealed at some point.
Well, Scott, it's been such a pleasure talking to you about your 11 years hosting the Psychology Podcast. I want to congratulate you on the achievement of all those years of wonderful interviews that you've been bringing to people. And thank you for allowing me to be your first guest and your last guest. It's been a real honor for me.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for being my first and last guest of this iteration of life. You may be a guest.
I hope so.
You may be the first guest of something else. You never know. But life is a funny thing. It's simultaneously growth oriented and cyclical. If you know what I mean.
Well, the ascending spiral, that's the image that I like. You keep returning to the same things, but hopefully at a more evolved
that's right.
level.
And that's maybe some people argue that's multiple lives as well, and not just the point of this life, but that may take us to another realm for a different podcast.
Right.
Annie, it's been such an honor talking to you today, and I love these themes. They really do a great job capturing the spirit and essence of the Psychology Podcast. And I want to really thank the listeners who've made it all possible for so many years, who've supported it. My from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much to everyone for making this podcast possible. And I did it all for you guys.
Thanks, Scott.